There we go. Music to my ears. Finally, Baruch Hashem. Thank you very much, Jim. I will have my entire staff get on this and fire everybody involved in what happened with this fiasco of this delay of 9 minutes that I will never get back in my life. Okay, enough about me. This evening, we are going to start a short journey. And I say it's short because relative to when we get into Shemona Esrei, it's going to be a much longer journey. This is probably going to take us a few weeks on Shema. Um, and what I want to do before we start getting into details is I want to just put up on the screen something I'm going to send in the group. And before I send it, I want to explain what it is. We get to the beginning of the. Okay. So one of the things that I've mentioned before in general about tefillah was how we pronounce words and how we read the words. And the truth is that until now, it's been very important. But when we come to Shema, and especially the first paragraph, the first line in the first paragraph, the meanings change and the mitzvah is or is not accomplished if we're reading it wrong. So it's very important for us to understand that how we're going to read the words becomes a critical part of how we accomplish the mitzvah of Kriyat Shema. So what I want to do is I'm going to put on the screen a page that I'm going to send to everybody, which I didn't want to just send it out of the blue without explaining it. I'm not going through everything, just a few of the things here. This is from a sefer that Victor Chen had that I took this picture from. And I just want to point out a couple of things that people definitely make mistakes, and myself included. I've had to train my ear, my voice over the years to make sure I said the right thing. I'm just going to go through just like maybe three or four of the words, maybe five, just to make sure we're very clear on how certain words are pronounced. We're not talking yet about meaning, the deep meaning, the simplest meaning, nothing right now, just reading. Okay. Here's a couple of mistakes people tend to make. One is the word Yisrael. It's not Israel. It's not, there's a yud. You have to say the word Yisrael. And between, when you say Shema Yisrael, you make a pause between Israel and the name of Hashem. One of the themes that's going to come up a lot when we talk about pronunciation and in Shema, even more so than in Shemona Esrei, is not lahavlia, to swallow two sounds together. So otherwise you may say, and I'm saying Hashem's name for purpose of teaching, Shema Yisrael Ladonai. It becomes Lado as opposed to two words. So you'll also find in your Siddur this being metek, this line between Yisrael and Hashem's name. The word echad has this extreme significance, but if you say echat, it's not the word, right? That's not the word. You have to make sure that you pronounce the dalet. This one here is the most common mistake. I've mentioned this before already. The most common mistake in all of the people reading Shema, and that's this word ve'ahavta. It is not ve'ahavta. Most people, unfortunately, pronounce this word ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta means and you loved Hashem. You must say ve'ahavta, milra, meaning the accents on the ta. Therefore, it means you should love Hashem. That's important too. The vet, meaning a bet without a dot in it, which is called a bet refuya, a soft bet, very often gets mispronounced as a fe. And you'll hear people say, maybe you yourself will say, b'chol levatecha, uv'chol nafshecha, v'shachtecha, uv'kumecha. The v needs to be pronounced. It has to be said. Here's another common mistake. And again, I'm going to send this out to you and you'll be able to take a look at it. I just want to spend a couple minutes on it. This word here, uvechol me odecha. It's me odecha, not modecha. And in addition to that, you'll also find a common mistake. Well, where did it go? Show you. Yeah, beshivtecha, beshivtecha. With your, I don't know, there's no such word. It's beshivtecha. It's a vet, not a fe. Where's the one I wanted to show you? Yeah, this is also when you see all these lines here. Here you see a line. Here you see a line. Here you see a line. Here is to prevent you from swallowing two words together. Ayula totafot ben einecha. It's not ben einecha. Ben einecha. It's uchtavtam al mezuzot betecha uvish arecha. It's not uchtavtam mal. Again, you're making up a new word. And the last word is another common mistake. Uvish arecha. It's not uvish uvisha. It's uvish arecha. You have to be careful to pronounce the word. when we go through this in depth, as we go through these different lines, and we're not going to get to most of this tonight, I'll review again what is the appropriate way to pronounce the words in order that we make sure that we're doing justice to the mitzvah of Kriyat Shema. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about Shema itself. Before you read this slide, before I read it to you, let's understand something. Way back in the beginning, when we first started talking about Tefillah, we mentioned that there's a machloket between the Rambam and the Ramban as to whether or not Tefillah is rabbinically ordained or it comes to the Torah. The Rambam says it's midaoraita. It's from the Torah. The Ramban says it's midrabanan. However, everyone agrees that at the bare minimum, the word Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad is deoraita. Even if they say that all Tefillah davening is derabanan, it's rabbinically ordained, the saying Shema morning and evening is from the Torah. How much of the Shema is considered min HaTorah that we have to say? We're Jews, so there's three possibilities. So there's three opinions, right? It's just the first line. It's actually four possibilities. The first line, everyone agrees. Some say it's the first line and the first paragraph. Some say it's the first line, first paragraph, second paragraph, and others say the entire thing. Be that as may, if the fact that it is 100% deoraita, at least at the bare minimum on the first line, gives us pause to think how important it is what we're about to enter into this next section of Tefillah. Now I'm going to read something to you, which on the surface is nice, but doesn't necessarily have an impact necessarily, and we'll see what it means. Gedolah Kriyat Shema. Kufshin stands for Kriyat Shema. Gedolah Kriyat Shema. Kriyat Shema, the reading of Shema is so great. Sheishkula connected kol hakorbanot, that it's the equivalent of bringing all the korbanot, all the sacrifices in Beit HaMikdash. How do we know this? So we're going to tell he's not going to give the example. He's going to have a citation, as we've seen, Kidegarsina ve'ele Shmot Rabbah. In Shmot Rabbah, which is Midrash Rabbah on Shemot, it tells us this, and here's what it says. Amar Rabbi Levi. Sorry, by the way, if you don't have your microphone on mute, please do so. I don't have the ability to do so from my screen right now. This way, I can give you a chance. You can yell at me, say whatever you want. Amar Rabbi Levi, Tzarich Adam liot zahir bekriyat Shema. Rabbi Levi says the person has to be very careful saying Shema. Sheishkula keneged kol hakorbanot. Now it explains why is it so important. Why does it make it similar to the korbanot? So if you have a little intuition, you might already understand what the connection is. And again, this is just a surface connection. Ma hakorbanot nohagim b'shachar u'bein ha'arbaim. We know that the day in Beit HaMikdash and before that in Mishkan began with something called the Korban Tamid, right? The daily sacrifice that was brought always first thing in the day. And it ended Bein HaRabaim, later in the afternoon, the second Korban as well. And during the day, we had other Korbanot. But there's one, like bookends, one in the morning, one in the evening, or late afternoon. Av Kriyat Shema noheget b'shachu be'eret. So too, Kriyat Shema is in the morning and then later in the evening. So again, on the surface, it's very nice. It makes a connection between korbanot. We also know from what we talked about months ago that korbanot, according to one opinion, is the source for tefillah, that we, instead of bringing korbanot, we daven. But there's a much deeper meaning here. What is Shema about in general? We haven't really talked about that yet, except briefly that the idea of love is in the first paragraph, and we're supposed to love Hashem. But we also know that this has to do in the first paragraph with, we all know the words, and we'll get into more depth, but we have to love Hashem b'chol levav b'chol nafshecha. To love Hashem with all your soul, and we're going to see a little later on, maybe tonight still, afilu notel nafshecha. Even if Hashem were to take your life, which means that we love Hashem to the extreme. That we be willing, if necessary, to give up our lives al kiddush Hashem. What were the korbanot? What was the magic, like a little magical thing that I did a sin, so I bring an animal, the Kohen, brings it as a korban, and poof, somehow I'm forgiven. Why? Why does that work? So the simplest answer, of course, is the korban is in place of me, because theoretically I should have been the one that had been put to death by the king, Melech Malchei Amlachim, for going against this word. But what happens with the animal? The animal's fat and blood and everything else is brought as a korban. It's brought as a sacrifice to Hashem. Hashem doesn't need our sacrifices, you know what I mean? So it represents our life that the animal's life in place of our life. So the concept of this kriyat shema that we state the chol nafshecha, the chol meodecha, is this similar idea that we are willing to give up our lives in service of Hashem if it were necessary for kiddush Hashem and for sanctification of the name of Hashem. So therefore, when it tells us that the saying Shema is the equivalent to bringing korbanot, it doesn't just mean it's a nice thing because it's once in the morning, once in the evening, but it also means because it's once in the it's the idea of us being willing to give up our lives for Hashem, the animals that were brought as korbanot. Okay. Next, make this a little bigger. There's an expression we know, which is that and now, of course, it went out of my head. We all know it. It'll come to me. Whatever. Forget the expression. Let's move on. Amar Rabbi Mani. Now, when we get used to doing something so often, let's say, for example, a person is not religious, and they go to Shul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, which have been known traditionally as the 3-day-a-year Jews, which I don't care for that expression at all, but it's used. So when they come into the Shul, the temple, the synagogue, whatever it might be, so there's this form of reverence. There's this feeling of specialness because they go in once, twice, 3 times in a whole year. When you go to Shul every single day, unfortunately, you get comfortable, and you don't necessarily have that same feeling as you do when you don't go into it as often. So he's telling us something important here. Amar Rabbi Mani. Rabbi Mani tells us, Lo tehei kriyat shema. By the way, all this is just a way of introduction still. Amar Rabbi Mani, Lo tehei kriyat shema kala be'inecha. The reading of Shema should not be looked at as being like very insignificant in your eyes. You might say, look, I say it twice a day minimum. If I say Kriyat Shema Lamita, it's 3 times a day, and I said it tens of thousands of times. So one time I don't get it right. Don't have that approach. Why? It has 248 words. Like the equivalent of how that there are 248 limbs in a person, bones, which is kind of crazy. I just realized that one of the last Mishnayot I did today in Masechet Ohalot was exactly that. Wow. Okay, cool. Umehem Baruch Shem. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, Im shamarta et sheli. Hashem says, if you keep my part, Likot Kriyat Shema Ketikuna, or Ketikna, you read Shema properly, Ani Eshmor et Shelcha. I'll watch your body. In other words, Hashem says, you do what you have to do from my part, meaning say Shema, say it the right way, think about what you're saying. I'll keep my part of the deal. We will see, you already know because you know Shema, but we will see as we get into the second paragraph, there's a lot of what sounds like deal making with Hashem, right? If you do the mitzvot, it's going to rain. You don't do the mitzvot, it's not going to rain. So there's this almost duality here. We're going to talk about that, what that really means when we get to that paragraph. But there is, in a general concept here, the idea that we have to be careful. Hashem tells us, Rabbi Mani quotes this and says that Hashem Kiyu tells us that we want to be very careful with reading Kriyat Shema because Hashem says, you do that, I'll be careful with keeping watch over your body, your 248 limbs. There is a difference in how these 248 words are made up, by the way. It's really 245 words. By Ashkenazim, they make it up by saying, Hashem Elokeichem Emet. When the Chazan says that, has them in mind, that those last 3 words being repeated count as makes 248. Some say that you include, when you're saying privately, you say El Melech Ne'eman by Ashkenazim, that those 3 add up to make it 248. Sfaradim have a different way of ending Shema. The Chazan says, Ani Hashem Elokeichem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem Elohim. Ani Hashem Elokeichem. And everyone says Emet. The Chazan then says Emet Hashem Elokeichem Emet. So why that's done, that duality, we'll get to down the road. But again, every Eidah, every Nusach, they're all fine. They're all right. The concept is being able to add up to 248 words in the Shema, representing the 248 limbs slash bones of the body. Okay, so let's start to go a little bit now into Shema. I'll start with the first pasuk. I blew it up a little bit, so it's a little fuzzy. Should have taken a clearer shot. Okay. You are all familiar with certain parts of this, and some may come as a surprise to you. Let's do with the familiar first. Shema Yisrael. In English, we say here Israel. Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem, our God. Hashem Echad, Hashem is one. Most of you, if not all of you, already know that in almost every Siddur, with the exception of certain printings, you have the ayin that's large and the daled that's large. That makes a word, and that word is ed, which means witness. When we say Shema Yisrael, we are bearing witness to the unity, the singularity. There's no good word whatsoever for Hashem, the oneness of Hashem. On the other hand, the word is also spelled the other way, Daled Ayin, Da, not yes as in Russian. Da, he is God. Yes, no, that's not what it means. It means, Da means you should know. We talked about this before, that the Rambam talks about the concept of emunah in Hashem, meaning having faith, trust, and belief in God. At the very, very beginning of the Rambam, he talks about this idea. He says you should believe and you should know. What does it mean you should know? And again, we talked about this. It means it has to be something that you are so, it's clear to you, like I know that 2 + 2 is 4, so too I know that Hashem exists and is present in my life. So that's another possible idea here, just to keep in mind with just the plain statement of this particular, of these words. Rav Hirsch points out something fascinating. One of the reasons that we are told that the Daled in the word Echad is large is that if it was not, and it was the same size, that God forbid we might mispronounce the word as Acher with a Resh. Acher means other. So we would say Shema Yisrael, hear O Israel, Hashem Elokeinu, our Hashem is our God, Hashem Acher, there's another God. Chas v'shalom. So therefore it's a Daled, so it's clear. And therefore it's big, so we can see it. Our first points out something really cool. What's the difference in the way we write the letter Daled and the way we write the letter Resh? The letter Resh is a curved end of the corner, and a Daled is very sharp. He's telling us in a metaphorical sense that our belief in Hashem needs to be clear. It needs to be sharp. Not something that's fuzzy, not something that we cut corner. I'm using this word right now. He didn't use this exact word. But it has to be sharply defined in the way that there are no other possibilities of another God. When you have corners, you have curves, there's maybe this idea we can shift a little bit. That, he says, that's unacceptable. Okay, very nice. It's a nice idea. But let's talk about some other ideas here. What is it you're supposed to be thinking when you say this? I said last week that if you don't say this pasuk with proper intention, you have to repeat it. One of the only things in all of Tefillah that's like that. What are you supposed to think? So one, you have to think that you're doing the mitzvah of Kriyat Shema. Another, that you're acknowledging Hashem is Hashem. Hashem is God. You're accepting Hashem as your melech. But look at the words. It seems a little, again, we say this so many times that sometimes it may not even occur to you. Why does it start off in singular? Shema Yisrael. Shema is the Lashon Tzivui. Okay, lishmoa, to hear. I say to you, Shema beni, Shema li, listen to me. It should be Shim'u Yisrael. If it's in plural, when we come to the second half of the sentence, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem our God, Hashem is one. Why is it Shema? So this is a similar idea to what we'll see in the beginning of Shemona Esrei, that there's this, and we've talked about in other contexts already in Tefillah, that there's 2 parts to each one of us. I'm not talking about the guf and the neshama, the body and the soul, but I'm talking about the idea that we are individuals, that we have our own personal relationship with Hashem, and on top of that, we are part of Am Yisrael, the Jewish people, and we have a collective relationship with Hashem. So one reason, again, when it comes to Shema and to almost everything else, when it comes to Psukim from Tanakh, there could be many, many, many explanations. I'm just going to give you 1 or 2. So on the one hand, we're saying it in singular. So Hashem is telling every single one of us that we have to listen, we have to understand that we have a unique relationship with Hashem. We also have to understand something else. There are multiple names in quotes for Hashem. We have the name of Atunut, Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud. We have the name Elohim. We've talked about this before. Now, someone might chas v'shalom think, Shema Yisrael, here is Ado and Nai is one. There's Elokeinu, there's another God. And then, and to prevent us from thinking that, we say Hashem Echad. There's only one God. The whole idea behind the Shema, the statement of what you should be thinking about, is the idea that you're doing the mitzvah of Kriyat Shema, you're accepting the Hashem as your Melech, you're accepting the oneness of Hashem, that there's no other God. Is the statement, I believe, in monotheism, i.e., only in Hashem. There's so much more. Now, in order for us to focus on that and concentrate on that, the custom, of course, is we know that we cover our eyes. So it may come as a surprise to you, but there are at least two ways to do it. Most people in the Ashkenazi world go like this. Within the Sephardi world, they'll put 2 fingers on the side of the nose and 3 fingers on their forehead. This is or over their eyes, I should say. And then 3 on the forehead. The 3 is like a shin. The shin, like on the tefillin, which stands for Shakai, the Shema, one of the names of God, Shaddai, it's pronounced. It's also the shin that's on the mezuzah. So that's another thing. It's like this, it's like this. All these things are great. Again, why do I mention that there's different customs? Because no one should ever say, our way is right and your way is wrong. And I've heard that. And even before I became Sephardi, I've heard this, that this is the way you have to do it. There's no such thing when it comes to custom. You stop follow your custom, but you can't say someone else's is wrong. There's another interesting thing people do, that one of the things you're supposed to think about is you see this letter Dalet. Yeah, we said it's big. That it's called what we refer to as the Arba Ruchot, the 4 directions. There's also the idea that Hashem is everywhere. It's representing that Hashem is everywhere. So some people have a custom that with their eyes still closed, they look to the left, to the right, and up and down. So the 4 directions, that they're in a sense picturing in their mind Hashem is surrounding them, is everywhere. There's no need to have to do that. But I'm mentioning to you, you understand that there are things that we can do to help us focus on something that something we become very familiar with, to bring some freshness to it. And doing that, it could be something changing how you put your hand in your eyes. It could be about what you're thinking. Some see the reading say right in front of it that you have right before Shema, you should have in mind to be Mekayim, the Olam Malchut Shamayim, the yoke of heaven. Some will say, here's a whole list of things to think about. Whatever it is you do is good. But don't be saying Shema Yisrael and thinking about what time you have to leave the shul, or what time you have to go do carpool, or whatever else it might be, because then you haven't done the mitzvah. You have to repeat the pasuk of Shema Yisrael. One thing that we don't necessarily recognize, that when we say Shema, in a certain sense, we're giving up our bechira. We're giving up our free choice. Now, that sounds counterintuitive, because part of who we are is the idea of free choice, right? I mean, Hashem gives us mitzvot. We have a choice: do the mitzvah, don't do the mitzvah, do the avera, do the sin, don't do the sin. That's our. But what does that mean? Our free choice? It means we are this Tuesday is elections here in Israel, and the local moitzot and local mayors, and they're all there for re-election. All what we're doing is we're choosing that person. Doesn't mean we're subjugating our lives to that individual or those individuals, but we're choosing that person to do things for us. And after a certain amount of time, whether it's 4 years or 35 years, depending where you live, that person steps down and someone else gets voted in. That's not what we're doing when we say Shema. We're not saying, okay, we're going to take you on now, and then, we're going to just kind of see how things go. What we're doing is we're completely accepting on ourselves the yoke of heaven. And what, in a sense, part of us we're doing is this unconditional acceptance and love of Hashem gives away the free choice, that we don't have the choice to say we're going to or not going to accept your mitzvot. Meaning within the mitzvot, Yaseh is the do's, and the Lotaseh is the do not. We have a choice to do or do not do them. But where does that come from? giving up our free choice of choosing to serve Hashem or not. By accepting Hashem, we accept the yoke of the mitzvot upon ourselves. Go to my notes. Okay. We know that the next statement after, and by the way, there's so much to say just on that one pasuk, but we'll be here forever. We know the next pasuk is said is the words is Baruch Shem Kvod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Now that pasuk does not appear in the Torah. So the question, of course, is why in the world do we add it into Shema? Shema is in the Torah, the Ahavta is in the Torah, V'hayayim Shamoah is in the Torah, Vayomer is in the Torah. Baruch Shem's not. Not only that, it's something special that the Malachim say in heavens to Hashem. So why in the world is it added? So here's a quote from the Mishnah Berurah, Nalachot of saying Shema. And some of you may be aware of this, and some of you may not. It said b'chashai. It said softly, quietly, except we know on Yom Kippur. I'll explain why in a minute. Kishekara Yaakov Avinu alav shalom devanav. Parshat Vayechi. When Yaakov Avinu calls all of his sons together, he knows he's lying on his deathbed. He wants to give them bracha. Bikesh legalot lahem et haketz. Yaakov Avinu, what did he want to do besides giving them a bracha? He said he wanted to reveal to them the end of days, when Mashiach was going to come. It says there in the pasuk in Parshat Vayechi, ve'agid alachem. He says, I want you to come here, and ve'agid alachem, and I will tell you et asher etchem be'achrit hayimim, what will happen to you in the end of days. So he wanted what's called, as the Gemara says and Rashi quotes, Bikesh Yaakov legalot et haketz. He wanted to, as I just now quoted, he wanted to reveal the end of days. What happened? Hashem didn't want that. And for that moment, the divine inspiration, the connection to Hashem left Yaakov. And Hashem did not allow him to reveal it to the children. Now he gets really nervous. Why does he get nervous? He has all his sons around him, and he remembers his history. He knew that by Abraham Avinu, his grandfather, that there was a Yishmael in the family, that he was rejected. We knew from his father Yitzchak that there was an Esav in the family, was rejected. So Yaakov was thinking to himself, as Yaakov himself, rather, by Yaakov himself, there was an Esav, his brother, who was rejected. Now he's worried that he's got his 12 sons around. They're all standing there waiting for this bracha. He wants to reveal the Ketz Hayamim, the end of days, and poof, the Shekhinah leaves him. He's concerned. Amar, Livanav, he said to his sons, Shema yesh bechem misheino hagum. Maybe one of you is not appropriate, is not worthy. Meaning he was concerned that just like there was a problem with Avram's brother, half-brother, and he was a problem with his own twin, Esav, maybe there's going to be a problem with one of the boys. Patru kulam v'amru, and all of them in unison suddenly said, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Tachazaken v'amar, and then the elder one, meaning Yaakov, said, Baruch Shem Kvod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Now, there's a discussion. The Gemara talks about that the angels in the heavens and God are talking like who revealed this to Yaakov Avinu. That's not important now. But the question here is that the Mishnah Berurah talks about it as follows, and quotes the Gemara also. So the rabbi said, based on this story, what should we do? Nemra, should we say the words Baruch Shem Kvod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed when we say Shema? Wait a minute. Lo amar Moshe. Moshe didn't say it, meaning it's not in the Torah. Lo nimrei, maybe we shouldn't say it. Wait a minute. Amar Yaakov, but Yaakov Avinu said it. Tiknu lomar oto b'chashai. So they instituted the idea that you still say it, but you say it softly. Uheker, and it acts as a reminder. She'eno mina parasha ktuva b'Torah. It's not actually written in the Torah. Rak Yaakov amaro, but rather Yaakov himself said it. So we say it. We say it softly because it's not in the Torah, but we can't skip it because it was said by Yaakov Avinu. Now, I want to read something to you that the Sefer HaChinuch talks about in this particular section right now. I'm going to read it and I'll explain what he's saying. In general, this has to do with still the mitzvah of Kriyat Shema. Kiviyot Adam Bal Chomer, since human beings, we're physical beings. Nifta, we're seduced by the things in this world. And we're drawn to our desires. We need some constant reminder of the heavenly kingdom, i.e., God. And we are asked, we're commanded to remember the kingdom of Hashem twice a day. Once in the morning, once in the day, and one at night. Because in general, that what a person sees throughout the day, and night, look around you. Look around you. I'm not talking about the war. I'm not talking about the anti-Semitism. Just talking, look at this world right now. Right? A guy can decide he wants to identify as a girl, and if he doesn't use the girl's bathroom in a public place, they can arrest the people. There was a couple, a husband and wife. I'm not making this up. There's a husband and wife. I forgot which state in the United States. Last week were arrested because DCFS found them negligent. What was the negligence? Their son identified as a girl, and the parents wouldn't address the child as in a feminine form, so they said that was child abuse. So Ve'izmir, where are we going? So it would seem that what we see day and night, we see the Hefech Emunah b'Hashem. We see the exact opposite of belief in God and Hashem's ways in this world. Lachen, therefore, alav lehitchazek, we have to strengthen ourselves. Erev avoker, morning and evening, b'hatzarat Shema Yisrael, with the declaration Shema Yisrael. Why? Shiyu einav pekuchot lefales orchotav v'chavein tza'adav al pi retzono. That we will be able to watch our steps, to keep our eyes open, to walk properly in the path of Hashem. So it's not just, it's connected to korbanot. It's not just because it's ki'ilu, we're giving our neshama to Hashem, we're willing to give up our lives to Hashem like the korbanot. It's even more than that. It's accepting the dominion of Hashem. It's also reminding us that Hashem Hu HaMelech, we have to follow Hashem's ways in spite of the things that we will see and run into all the time. Let's take a look at the paragraph that we all know. Before we do that, we have to know that there are 3 paragraphs in Shema. The Gemara in Masachet Brachot discusses, let me just take it off of here for a second. The Gemara in Masachet Brachot discusses the idea of why is it that the order of the paragraphs of Shema are the way they are. In other words, we say ve'ahavta, you should love Hashem, ve'hayayim shamoa, and then we say vayomer. Why don't we talk about tzitzit first, then we could talk about Shema, then we could. Why is it specifically in that order? So Gemara tells us a fairly simple idea. Simple, but very deep. That on the one hand, let me back up. Let me see. I've used this example. Actually, somebody in this group, I used this example once before, pointed out that it was not accurate. So I've amended how I've taught this over the years. I am not in the army. I don't know if you want to say unfortunately or fortunately. I guess it's fortunate for Israel. I guess I'm not in the army. I'm not in the army. So therefore, if a mifaked in the army were to come to me, I'm standing outside, and gave me a pkudah, gave me an order to do something, I could do it if I want to, but I have absolutely no requirement that I have to do it. Obviously, if it's something important, I'm not talking about that. I'm saying he says, I'm giving you an order that you have to go to the shul and bring me 25 sidurim right now. Something shtuyo, whatever. I don't have to do it. But if I am under his command in the army, then I have to. What's the difference? Because when I'm in the army, I have a fealty to the army. I have a fealty to my country, to my commanding officer, and I have to follow orders with very little exception. There are exceptions, but very little exception. When I accept the authority of the army, when I accept the authority, let's say, forget the army, let's take that, put it aside. I walk by a business, a company. I'm in Yerushalayim, I'm in Tel Aviv. There's this multi-million-dollar corporation, and the CEO Multi-bazillionaire comes out and tells me to do something. I don't have to listen to him. There's no reason in the world I have to listen to him. Again, if he's requesting, he's nice, fine. I'll be happy to do it if it's something I can do. But to demand I do something, absolutely. But if I work for the company and following chain of command, and I'm told to do something, unless it's against the law, illegal, immoral, against my principles and halakha and anything else, I have to do it. Again, why? Because I signed on for it. So the Gemara tells us that the first thing we have to do is Kabbalat ol malchut shamayim, and that's the first thing. Accept the authority of Hashem. That's what that first paragraph is about. Once we accept the authority of Hashem, notice if we start off by saying the first paragraph is V'hayayim shamoa, is that all the mitzvot, keep the mitzvot, keep the mitzvot, keep the mitzvot. And if you don't, here's what's going to happen. If that were the first paragraph, they'll say like, why should I? Based on what? So now the first paragraph is V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha. It's about the acceptance of what we call in Hebrew ol malchut shamayim, accepting the yoke of heaven upon ourselves. The second paragraph is now that you accepted it, you have to keep the mitzvot. Keep the mitzvot aseh, mitzvot lo ta'aseh. And the third paragraph has to do with Shema. It has to do with tzitzit. I'm going to hold off on explaining that, the third paragraph, when we actually get to it. Because it's to do with mitzvot by day and by night. But there is a logic to the order of the paragraphs of Shema. But let's take a look for a couple minutes at the first paragraph. Remember, this is a v, not a f sound. Ve'ahavta. It's not ve'ahavta. Don't make the mistake again. Ve'ahavta Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavecha, b'chol nafshecha, b'chol meodecha. That's the first pasuk. What does it mean? You have to love Hashem with all your heart, your soul, and your possessions, your stuff, your might. We all grew up, we were all taught. It says b'chol meodecha means all your might, all your strength. But one thing that I had not written down as a note for myself, but I want to say it now before I forget, is if you have to love Hashem with your life, isn't that like a kal v'chomer, like how much more so with your stuff? I mean, why does he have to tell us love Hashem with your possessions? So unfortunately, we know people who their stuff is more important to them than their own life. For most people, their lives are more important than their stuff. And therefore, said Chazal, that Hashem tells us both to cover every type of person. Okay, so now let's just talk about for a minute about the Chol V'Avacha, which we talked about in other contexts, briefly in this class, and definitely in other classes as well. I'm going to read to you, I have a quote here in front of me in my notes. To love Hashem with all your heart. Now, what we did talk about last week, or I think it was last week, we talked about V'Avacha, the two letters of Bet. It's what should be the Choli Becha, with all your heart. It means really all your hearts. So we said that one is the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov. It's the evil inclination and the inclination to do good. That you're supposed to love Hashem with both. And we saw this in the bracha of the bracha that comes before Shema. And we talk about Yached V'Avacha. We want to unify our hearts, the two possibilities that we have our Yetzer, we're able to overcome our Yetzer Hara. And therefore, by doing that, we're doing the will of Hashem, and with both our hearts. But I'm going to read to you a quote I have here from Chavot HaLevavot. Chavot HaLevavot, written by Bachya Ibn Pakud. It's a name that we'll come across in the history class, B'ezrat Hashem. It says like this. I have the English commentary. It explains that the basic reason for Ahavat Hashem is out of gratitude for the fact that Hashem created us. Each person is to think, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created me. Although he did not need me, the world existed previously without me and will continue to exist after me. What does that mean? Bo nagid that Mr. Shmerel Beryl, who lives in Pinsk, never lived. Or he lived in a different time period. What would be the difference? We don't know. If me, as Zev Shandlov, if I had lived in the 12th century, would I have done, and again, with the same persona of who I am, would that have been important back then? Would I have made a difference? Would I have just been another guy in the street? Would I have been a doctor? Would I have been a coal miner? I don't know. But the fact that I didn't exist then in the way I am right now we're not talking about Gilgulim right now, the transmigration of the soul. It means it wasn't necessary in Hashem's plan for me to live then. It wasn't necessary for any of you listening to me right now who will listen to this eventually on YouTube to be alive at any other time in the makeup who you are right now, neither in the past nor in the future. We were all necessary. There's a famous line from the Kutzker. It says that the day you were born is the day Hashem decided the world could not exist without you. Hashem has a reason for every single one of us to be here. Would it make a difference if there's one guy who's living somewhere in some far-flung country, if he didn't exist? We don't know, but it's part of Hashem's plan that that person needs to exist. It's not just that you exist. It's not enough to exist. It's think about all the interactions you have in your life. You don't need to be some big hotshot politician or some big chief executive officer or some big Rosh Hashiva. You, as an individual, no matter what you do in your lives, you all have an influence and an effect on other people, on yourself, of course, and on other people. And all those interactions that you have literally on a daily basis, whether it's online, in person, on the phone, in writing, speech, all those are important. They have some ripple effect in this universe. And Hashem decided you needed to be here. And says the Chavot HaLevavot that alone is for a reason for us to love Hashem. Now, Hashem wanted us now. It's not just Hashem. Okay, you know what? It's January 1959. It's my year of my birth. January 1959, we're going to bring a guy into the world. It's going to be Zev Shema. And he comes in there. No, there was a reason that I came here. There's a reason that you all are here. And the idea that Hashem, who created a universe which we can't in our minds even fathom the size in our brain. We cannot begin to think how gigantic it is and massive it is because we don't have the words to describe it. Hashem said that you, the one person that's right here, right now, are among 8 billion plus people. It was necessary. Hashem wants you, not doesn't need you. Hashem doesn't need anything, but he wants you here now. That is a source for love as well. I mean, think about it. Let's say a person, let's not talk about any of ourselves. Let's take a city in Rishon. Let's take a shul in Rishon. It's been around for 45, 50 years. And there's a person who moves into the neighborhood. And he starts to daven. And he davens there for 25 years. Now, the people that were there way before him and the people that will be there way after him, that one person, maybe he changed something, maybe it was the Gabbai, it was the Rav, but most people, it's not like they're changing the makeup of the shul. They have an influence maybe on the Tefilla, maybe whatever it might be. It's the same shul before, it's the same shul after. Some minor changes, maybe sometimes some big changes, but time marches on, right? People pass away and time marches on without them. Things change. When Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, when Aaron Kohen passed away, when the Lubavitcher Rebbe passed away, when Moshe Feinstein sets out, when all these Gedolei Israel passed away, there was a very big impact and a huge loss. But we're still here. We have people that cannot replace any of those people, but they have similar passion and similar gravitas to affect Am Yisrael. But that's also not just true of these great Gedolim, it's true of you and me. All of us. We all have this gravitas. We all have this importance in this world, only because one reason, Hashem chose us to be here at this time period of history. And for that, says Chavot HaLevavot, v'ahavtat Hashem Elokecha. For that alone, you should love Hashem for bringing you into this role at this time. Tov, we're going to continue Bezrat Hashem next week. And in the meantime, I'll see if I can get this Zoom business straightened out. Again, thank you very much, Jim, for pitching in and helping me out here. When I end the class, I'll be in touch with you. If the recording only shows up on mine or shows up on yours, we'll figure it out afterwards. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. Toda rabah.
Very good. Thanks, Rabbi.
Thank you. Thank you very much.